For me, having a boundary, it allowed me to find out who I was. Like, what do I like? What am I doing to please people? And then what am I doing because it's authentically me?
Welcome to the Extraordinary Lives podcast, where we talk about lives that go beyond the ordinary to the extraordinary, with the extra being Jesus. We'll be encouraged by amazing stories and helpful insights from the lives of ordinary people who have that extra, that supernatural difference that only Jesus can give. This is your host, Ellen Bennett. Thanks for joining us. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the show. I am so excited to welcome Nancy Halliday. She is a new friend who I am very excited to get to know better, and she's got many great stories to share with us just about how God has been extraordinary in her life. Welcome to the show, Nancy.
Thank you. It's so great to be here.
Well, I'm so excited to have you. And one quick note to all the parents out there, this show will have some adult situations that we talk about. So if you have children, you may want to listen to this first before everyone else listens in. But boy, such important topics. And I'm so glad you're willing to talk about them. Tell us a little bit about your ministry at North Coast Church, Nancy.
Thank you. So I am a part of a ministry called Unintended Journey, and it is for women only, and it's for women who have experienced sexual betrayal in relationship. Most of the women are married, but it is not limited to women who are married. And it really, it really just is a way to come alongside each other and help us through navigating this horrible road of finding out that your husband isn't who you thought he was. Some of it is through porn addiction. Some ladies are dealing with sexual betrayal, like in real life. And it really is sad. It's another addiction that it's not limited to men. Both men and women can get caught up in it. But for Unintended Journey through North Coast Church, it is for women whose spouses are struggling in this area.
Wow, Nancy, that sounds like a truly incredible and needed ministry. How did you get started with it?
So basically what happened is I thought that I had a fabulous marriage. And I never expected to need it. And right after our 20-year anniversary, through random series of events, I found out that my husband had been unfaithful with another woman at work for almost 14 years. And so I felt just so broken. It was awful. And I had gone to church because I was one of those things, I didn't know what to do. I tried to keep some sort of a routine. I had asked him to leave the home temporarily so that I could sort things out. And I was sitting in church, not wanting to engage with anyone. So staring at the bulletin, reading every single word on it because I just didn't want to look up. And sure enough, God was so good. And in that bulletin, because it's not always in the bulletin, they were getting ready to start a new session of Unintended Journey. And the first line was, do you have a partner or a spouse who is struggling with sexual sin? Have you been betrayed? And I just thought, oh my gosh.
Wow.
Yeah. So I called the next day.
That's great. Tell us a little bit about that feeling of betrayal and how on earth do you work through something like that?
Oh gosh, it's the worst feeling in the world. It was as if the air left Earth. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't function. I had one daughter in college, and I had one daughter at home going into her junior year of high school. And that was the biggest blessing because I couldn't stay in bed all day and I couldn't check out completely. I still had to function. I still had to be a mom. I didn't know who I was as a wife because that person to me, I didn't know her. I felt betrayed by myself too, because I had had little signs very early on in the beginning that I would call out, like, you seem to really know her well. Wow, you seem to know a lot about her personal life. And he had the perfect comeback for each of my questions. So I didn't trust myself. I trusted him more than I trusted myself. And so, yeah, I will say Unintended Journey really did save my life because you don't go into marriage thinking that you're not going to be the only woman in their life. You go in thinking, I will be the only woman now for the rest of his life. So I didn't feel equipped with what to do with the strong emotions and the sadness and the grief. And I remember walking around the house, looking at all of our family pictures, thinking, none of this is real. Like he was seeing her here in this picture. He was seeing her
Mm.
here in this picture. I didn't even want the pictures up anymore. I felt like it was a lie. And it was probably the worst grief that I have felt so far in my life. Yeah.
Wow. And
Yeah.
how long ago was this, Nancy?
You know what? We are going on, this is, I think, year 6.
Okay.
So we're 6 years beyond it now.
Got it. And I know that you talked with him about talking today. So I think it's amazing that you guys wanted to share and think it's that important. Tell me a little bit about that decision, why you wanted to talk about this today.
Thank you. Okay. So I have to say, if this would have been brought up in the first 3 years of his recovery, he would have said no. Absolutely not. I think he would have still been in his pain, in shame, embarrassment, and he would not have wanted this to come out. But now that we're in year 6, I would say around year 4 or 5 is when I really feel like he had surrendered it completely to the Lord and a little bit of humility started showing. So for women who are listening, it does take a few years of them really working on their sobriety from porn and their addiction to feeling like important to other women. That's part of it too. And then when you start to see that humility come through, that for me is when I felt a little bit of my shoulders coming down, like, okay, okay. And then I would say, yeah, year 5, right around now, is now he is okay with people knowing the story because I think God allows sometimes these things to happen. One, because I think he wanted me to live an authentic life. I didn't realize I wasn't living an authentic life. But two, I think he really wanted, I mean, my husband really knows him more and is like what I would call a true Christian now. And we use these times of struggles then to help others. Anytime I came across anybody who had been what I had been through and they were further along, I would thank the Lord and then just, I didn't want to glom onto them, but I just like, tell me everything, like give me hope. Yeah, share with me, like, what are your tips? How do you get through it? When do the nightmares stop? Like, I remember reaching out to a friend and saying, okay, when do the bad dreams go away? Because I would dream like nightmares at night.
Mm.
And so, yeah, I think we're good sharing our story now because that's how you help others. There's not a whole lot out there that I was aware of in this arena to help with my healing. And so I think the more people that come forward and say, hey, it happened to me as well, then the more you get to like come together and help each other.
Yes, of course, that all makes me think of the verse in 2 Corinthians 1, verse 3. Praise be to the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of compassion and the God of all comfort, who comforts us in all our troubles so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves receive from God. And just talking about how what we go through can be used, of course, to help others. We'd rather not go through it, but we live in a sinful world and sin is the reality, and addictions, unfortunately, can be a big reality as well. So being able to help others is helpful to know, well, at least something came out of this that might be beneficial, but
Right.
I can't imagine just the pain. So thank you for being willing to share. Tell us a little bit about the ministry and how it helps people to recover from such hard things.
Oh, okay. My favorite thing to talk about,
Yeah.
unintended journey. So I'm going to talk about it just really plain, how
Mm-hmm.
it starts. It all starts with a phone call. So there's a beautiful couple, Marlene and Joe. They started this ministry 25 years ago. Joe has a men's group that partners with the women's group. You don't have to have a partner in both. You can be in one and not the other. A lot of husbands aren't ready for recovery, so they don't join. But it starts with a phone call, and you have a phone call with Marlene, and she basically just vets it. And I appreciated this because unfortunately, her goal is to have women who are authentic, and this has happened to them. Her goal is to keep out
Mm.
anybody who's just trying to find information, or maybe they are
Wow.
the other woman and they're looking to
Wow.
see how much she knows. So it's a very vulnerable and real
Mm.
conversation. And then it only starts twice a year. So you can join in August or you join in January. Say you called her October and they're halfway through and you can't hop in. She'll connect you with a prayer partner, a woman who is currently in it, who will pray with you and kind of be there for you until you can start. It's very structured. It is the same books. You start with book one, you go to book two. Book three is boundaries. For me, I didn't have a healthy relationship with my father. And so, therefore, I think my relationship with my husband was quite stunted. I didn't have boundaries. I thought it was great to be enmeshed with everybody. And so, you learn the importance of boundaries and knowing who you are and respecting the other person and yourself.
That's good. Okay, I'm going to interrupt you here.
Yeah.
Tell us more. What is enmeshment? I can't imagine being enmeshed with anyone. Ha ha. That is such, I think, especially for Christian women, it's a word that we may not know, and we can think that we're being loving, but really we're just kind of putting ourselves into someone else's life where we may not belong. So tell me a little bit, what is enmeshment and what are boundaries?
For me, enmeshment looked like I'm going to continue to believe my husband even when I have red flags or feelings of uncertainty. Like that doesn't seem right, but it's okay. I'm just going to push it under. I don't want to cause any strife in our marriage. I don't want to be the nagging wife. I want us to live in peace, which are all good things, but they're not good things if you're not honoring yourself. And so for me, what a boundary looked like was to honor myself. And when something happens and I think, ooh, I don't like this, this makes me feel uncomfortable, or this doesn't seem true, let me just clarify this. Like, hey, what is this second email address? I don't feel good about this. And if I get the same answer and I don't feel good about it, it's not letting it go. It's praying about it. It's maybe having a little bit of physical distance in that moment to say, I need to step away and I'm going to go for a walk by myself. And I really need to work through and pray through this. And then on a bigger scale, for me, having a boundary and different boundaries, not only with my spouse, but in friendships, with my children, saying, like, I don't feel comfortable or I don't really like this. I love you. I love that you like that, but I don't really like this. So I'm going to do this a little bit different. For me, it allowed me to find out who I was. Like, what do I like? What am I doing to
Mhm.
please people? And then what am I doing because it's authentically me? I'm still learning it. I feel like I'm a baby boundary person, but a boundary just allows me to be the most authentic person I can be while respecting somebody else. I have learned that I wasn't very respectful of other people's boundaries because I had none. And it wasn't because I was disrespectful or intending to be mean. I just thought, well, no, 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 no. We all do this together. Like, and you should do it because I want to do it. And I'm going to do it because you want to do it. And no, no.
That's
Yeah.
so good. I think, especially with people like me, sounds like you too, who can have more of a tendency to be a people pleaser. One, you don't want to cause conflict, but two, you so want to make sure you're in a good relationship with someone. So you're denying who you are, like what you're saying, you're not being authentic. And of course, it's fine to say what you want, like even choosing a restaurant, right? Like, I would like to go to this restaurant versus the one you just suggested. What's wrong with saying that? But if you're a people pleaser, I mean, that's such a small example, but that can be an example of you might think that you're just putting that other person first and denying yourself, but really, you're not being authentic with who you are with that other person. And they want you to be authentic. They want you to be you, not just another version of them. I like how you mentioned with boundaries that you would think, wait, something's not quite right here. And you would step away to try to figure out what it was. And sometimes we just really need that processing time too, especially if we are so caught up in not recognizing it before. That's good. And then is there another book after that, or what would be the next step after boundaries?
Yeah, so it varies each season depending on how many ladies are going through the process. And so we have done Safe People, which is also written by the same authors who wrote Boundaries. We have done a number of Doug Weiss materials called Betrayal Trauma, Married and Alone, Intimacy, Anorexia. So usually once you get through those three, those are the foundation classes. The first two books are on grief and working through betrayal. Basically, it's so hard too because you feel like you have a fire hose coming at you, like you have all this great information. So it really is, you have to commit to a year. You do book one and book two. It helps you with the grief, processing your emotions, what to do because it's not right for every woman to stay. And it might be a good time for people to stay. So it's kind of helping you make the next step decisions and to prepare yourself. And then boundaries is a requirement. You have to go through the boundaries class, and that is now 1 year. So those three books, those will take up 2 full years. And then if it's a place where you feel you have made great connection and friendship and you want to nurture, continue to grow, you can do the continuing books, or you can go back to book one if you feel like you need to repeat the process. Or in my case, you start leading a group and you start helping women who are at that very beginning stage of finding out, and you walk them through the books.
Wow, that is so great. I love that the process takes so long because it's so much to process.
Yeah.
So that is amazing. And I'm guessing you all must also talk about forgiveness. What does that look like?
Yes. Forgiveness definitely comes up, and I just want to make it clear. I think a lot of people might know this about forgiveness. You do not walk in and are told that you need to forgive them because what they did is anything understandable. Basically, as you work through the grief and your emotions, you realize that the forgiveness is necessary in order for you to heal. The forgiveness is for you. The forgiveness is so these offenses don't take root and create this bitterness within you that then makes you feel hopeless and that there's nothing good in life anymore. So the forgiveness is whether or not they are changing, whether or not they are working on getting themselves out of this sexual sin. The forgiveness is so that you can kind of hand this over to God and say, I don't know what you want me to do with this, but vengeance is yours, healing is yours, restoration is yours. And I want it. I want that restoration. I want the healing. So I'm going to just give this to you because I can't hold this without it poisoning me.
Wow, that is so helpful. Thanks, Nancy, for
Yeah.
explaining that more. And I'm guessing it's probably a process. Like you try to forgive at the beginning and then you take things back and then you try to forgive again. And
Yeah. It's a constant choice.
mm,
I think in the beginning, it's a constant choice almost
yeah,
hourly to continue to forgive because new memories will come up. Another wave hits you, and you're just so angry that you are flattened again by memories or flattened again by new information. That's the other thing. Unfortunately, when men in this situation do their disclosures, they are not going to do it eloquently, and it's not going to be everything, I have found out. And sometimes that's intentional on their part, and sometimes it's not. They've been struggling with sexual sin for years or decades. Sometimes they will remember something that they did not tell you in the beginning, and they are taught not to hide it and conceal it, that the best way to work through it is to bring it into the light. And that means you're going to be triggered and reintroduced. I always tell my ladies it's going to feel like someone ripped that scab off and you're bleeding again. And you have to go through all these healing choices that you've made and the processes. And yeah, you have to forgive again and stay in that mindset of forgiveness, even when it's hard. It sucks.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like it would be so painful and you'd love to just walk away from this whole process, but then there's not really anything to walk away to. You know that if you walk away, it's just going to be worse. So going through the process will hopefully bring you to more freedom and peace.
Through sitting with these ladies, we all had different experiences. And as horrible as this sounds, I remember the first session, I was just in shock. The second session, because the first meeting of each session, everybody gets together from all the groups. You introduce yourself, you kind of say where you are. And I can remember women saying that they were widowed and thinking, oh, they're so lucky. Like they don't have to deal with it. They don't have to deal with
Wow.
him. They don't have to worry if it's ever going to happen again. That's how hurt I was. I was thinking, gosh, you're the lucky ones. And I realized, no, the women who leave are still working through the same pain. And even though they're not with their partner, their new partners, they wonder, will this happen again? For the ladies who they decide to reconcile with their husbands, we still wonder sometimes, gosh, could this happen again? It's scary. And then for the ladies who were widowed, I got a huge heart for them because they never got to work through the restoration with their spouse. They never got to know, could we have had an authentic, wonderful marriage? Did I know everything? Was he truly sorry? They never really get closure on this side of heaven. So I began to see as I got healthier too, they weren't the lucky ones. None of us are the lucky ones.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good point. Yeah.
Yeah. So to the woman who thinks that if you just get divorced and move on, it goes away, it doesn't. It doesn't. The fear of it happening again, the holes that we have, the reason why we picked a person like that in the first place and missed a lot of red flags, it's not because we are bad, immature people, but it's because there was probably some holes in our childhood and in relationships that were modeled to us. There were so many red flags I did not know were red flags until I was reading my healing material thinking, that's a red flag?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
Yes.
So if we're struggling in this situation and we have bonded with somebody who has betrayed us, it's not our fault, but it's so wise to figure out, what am I missing? What red flags am I not seeing? What are some of these tendencies that I thought were normalized in my upbringing that they're not normal, they're not healthy? But you don't know until you really get the help and are directed to the right resources.
That's good. That's
Yeah.
good. And ultimately, burying your head into the sand is not a good idea.
No, it feels good temporarily,
Yes.
but
Yes.
it doesn't sustain and bring you
Yeah.
joy.
Yeah.
Never. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Well, if it's okay, we'll put a link to the different books in the show notes. And of course, we'll put a link to the ministry, Unintended Journey at North Coast in Vista. Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, anything else you want to share about that?
I would say if you're going through this, 3 things. 1, find a counselor. It doesn't have to be a marriage counselor, but find you a counselor. And I actually went through 3 different counselors. And my first counselor was great for my shock and my grief. And then once I was over that, I didn't feel like I was connecting with her. And I would leave our sessions just feeling a little disappointed. And there's no shame, just like we are all good at different things. Counselors have different specialties. So that first counselor, she was phenomenal for shock and grief. And then I needed a counselor to help me kind of re-engage in life and with my marriage and the day-to-day things. I had worked through the shock and the grief, but I didn't know what normal looked like anymore. And I needed to
Mhm.
kind of find myself. So after her, then I moved to a marriage counselor. And so it took 3 counselors to help get me
Yeah.
to the place where I was kind of feeling normal, somewhat whole. For me, it was important to see a Christian counselor because I wanted someone who was going to constantly refer me either to scripture, back to God. That was my lifeline. And so I wanted them to be aware and to be able to help me stay secure to my lifeline. And then the other thing, too, is Lisa Turkhurst has been through this same thing, and she is the president of Proverbs 31 Ministries. She has written some books recently that I have read that I wish I could have had at the beginning, because her book, Forgiving What You Can't Forget, was her journey through
Yes.
her betrayal. And so having somebody in the ministry, so well spoken, well written, who had been through exactly what I had been through, and to still stay in the spotlight and to still say, I'm struggling, but God is so good, and to continue with her ministry was what I needed to see. I wanted to see that this doesn't take everybody down and take you out. I wanted to see a woman in Christ who was powerful and still confident and but still struggled and had questions. So, yes, if you're going through this, I would highly recommend searching her and her books out because she's phenomenal as well.
Great. I'll be sure to put a link to those books
Okay.
as well, to her. Thank you.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so another big question is, how did you handle this with your girls? I know do you have 2 girls?
I have 2 beautiful girls, yes.
Okay. That seems like that would be hard, and of course, they're older.
Yes.
So that makes a difference too in how you would go about approaching that.
Well, I have to say, I do not believe I handled it very eloquently at all. I I was shocked and hurt, and I was so angry, and, I blurted everything out. I just said, "Your father is not who you think he is, and he's coming home from a business trip, and he's gonna take you out to dinner and tell you all about his girlfriend at work because he's been having an affair. He's disgusting." And I mean, I I don't know if there's a good way to share this news with your children, but I would not be the poster child of how to share with your children.
Ah,
I will say, though, I learned to give myself some grace because going through UJ and talking with other women and learning how they had or had not told their children, that's what solidified to me that there's no easy way to say this. And for the women who were holding back and not telling I have a friend whose children are adults. She still has not told them. It
mm,
eats at her. She feels so fake. She feels like she doesn't know how much should I tell them? Should I tell them anything? They're married themselves. Will this scare them? I don't want them to think poorly of their father. And for me, I had already let it out this way. And so I thought, well, you
mhm,
know what? I didn't hide my emotion. I didn't hide my anger. They know exactly what has happened. And yeah, it's awful. It was awful. And
mhm,
we still have shock waves. Last Christmas was really hard. One of my daughters just said, I'm having a hard time. I hate this. Even though my husband and I had reconciled, even though we had gone through marriage counseling, even though we felt we were in a good place, she was still grappling with this. And Christmas was hard. We all cried. I mean,
Mm,
it was her, ooh, I'm gonna lose it. It was her
mm,
releasing her anger and her fear and kind of the
mhm,
stuff she had been holding inside.
mm.
It's just hard.
Yeah.
It's a hard road even afterwards with reconciliation. It's hard for the kids even when they're older. I didn't understand God's timing. In the beginning, I thought, I wish I would have known this sooner and I could have got out sooner and I wouldn't have my kids and all of these memories that I have to work through now. But God's timing is perfect. And even though the kids were older and they could understand it, it's still really hard for them. It's very confusing
Mhm.
for them too. For me, I thought I modeled what I did not have. We ate dinner at the table every night. I was a stay-at-home mom. I loved it. I was involved in PTA. I really did think we had it all and that they were experiencing the childhood that I had always dreamed of. And then to
Mm.
have to tell them some of this wasn't real is horrible. It's horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't think there's a perfect way to tell the children. I think each woman has to use their own discretion with their child's age and maturity level and like whatever their child's if you have a child with anxiety or special needs or anything like that, obviously, there's no perfect way.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I think it just, speaks volumes that, of course, our sin doesn't just affect us, it really affects all those around us. And yeah, and I've definitely had family situations myself that have involved sexual sin. And it just truly is difficult to work through. And I'll just mention my husband, his first wife ended up having an affair and they divorced. And that really affected, the beginning of our marriage and how we started out and, fears. It sure affected him. And he talks a little bit about this in his interview with me on an earlier podcast, just how he was just kind of crazy at first. And he knew he was crazy. And he was thinking all of these thoughts that he didn't know what to do with. And it was so impacting for him to have friends around him who could listen, who could build him up, as a person, even as a man. And I just think, boy, the body of Christ is so important. And this unintended journey just is such a huge part of that we
Yes.
really need each other.
Oh, amen. For sure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I would love to learn a little bit about how you even became a follower of Christ.
So funny. That's such a messy story too. And I don't think I have a messy life, but then I
Uh,
guess certain pieces of it are just really messy. So I was born to a mother and father who were very young. They were 20 when they had me, and they were both raised Christian. My mom, I would say, is a very strong Christian. And so I was born into the Christian faith. You know what I mean? Like, you're born in
yes.
Arizona, I was born a Christian. So, but my father was an alcoholic and that grew. And so my parents ended up divorcing when I was in second grade, and it was very hard. So I lived with my grandmother for a little bit. Her name is Ellen, who I named my firstborn
Yay.
daughter after.
Oh,
Then I ended up not having a relationship with him at all past eighth grade. He moved, and so that's when I
wow.
stopped seeing him. But he was an alcoholic. It turned to drugs. It turned to pornography.
Mm,
So I was in my mom's house where she's single. We didn't have a lot. It was very hard for her to be a single mom with me and my brother. And she was raising us to be dependent on Christ and to look to Christ, and she did her best to model a good Christian lifestyle, and then I would go to my dad's house every other weekend. I'm in junior high, here's all the wine coolers you want, porn on the TV, Playboy out.
wow.
Yeah, so my upbringing was very confusing because my father called himself a Christian. So
Wow.
to be newborn until 12 around all of this,
Yes.
both parents calling themselves Christians, trying to decipher which of this is real and what's not real about Christianity,
Very
what they're calling
confusing.
themselves. Very confusing.
Yeah.
So when I got to college, I was done with Christianity.
Yeah.
My high school years were pretty even keel because my father was out of the picture. But because I lived in my mom's house, when you live under my roof, you go by my rules and you go to church every Sunday. So I continued to go to church. But when I got to college, I remember thinking, oh, I'm free. I don't have to deal with any of this religious stuff. I'm done with church. I didn't feel done with God. For some reason, I think God is so good. I just innately knew God was normal. My parents aren't. My mom's closer to normal than my dad, but church is weird. I don't want to
Mhm.
go.
Wow.
So isn't that funny? And I met my
Mhm.
husband in college, and I was looking for somebody who was not a big partier and who didn't drink. Because I thought if I marry somebody who's not an alcoholic, then I will be okay.
Mhm.
And can I tell you, my husband does not drink a lick, never has,
Wow.
was not a
Wow.
partier in college. When we would go out, he was the first person we would call if we needed a ride because we always knew he would probably either be doing some sort of homework or something that wasn't involved with alcohol. So I thought I was so safe in marrying
Yes.
him.
Wow.
Who knew?
Yep.
Yes.
Mhm.
So yeah, that was my upbringing. It was very chaotic. We moved around a lot. My mom did end up remarrying when I was going into 6th grade. Very nice Christian man. And like a lot of men, didn't really get involved. He was very kind to us, loving to us, provided
Sure.
for us, but he wasn't going to overstep boundaries and pretend like he was the dad or anything like that.
Mhm.
So I have a very good relationship with him, but I still feel like my upbringing, I was fatherless because I either had a
Yes.
father who was an alcoholic and drinking, or I had a stepfather who was very good to us and my mom's husband. But I wouldn't have even allowed him to take on that father role because I was so rebellious in it.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so tell me, how on earth do you think of God as Father then, with such a hard upbringing with that?
Oh, well, I'll be honest. I believe he is my heavenly father. I don't think this side of heaven, I will really understand that. And so I think that I just accept that I have limitations with father. But I do know that God is almighty. I can tell you that in my deepest grief is when I felt the closest to him, and I could
Mm.
feel, even though audibly I couldn't tell you what his voice sounds like, there
Mhm.
was just such a strong knowing in me to the point, Ellen, I'm not kidding you. There were days that my daughter was a cheerleader and I would need to rally and go to her football games. And I felt like a zombie sitting in the stands. And I can remember God saying, you need to get up and this is what you're going to wear. Because I was thinking, I don't even know what to
Wow.
wear. I would go to the closet and know exactly what I was supposed to put on. And that wasn't
Wow.
from me. I was so
Mhm.
broken. But he, like when they say that he carries you, like he really
Yeah.
does.
Wow, I love that.
Yes. So I don't know if I know him as like people know their earthly fathers. I don't know.
Mhm.
I don't
Yeah.
think I've ever really had a safe fatherly relationship that I could just relax into. But I do know
Mhm.
him as God, and isn't that the cool thing? If you could only relate to him as a father, my relationship with him would be stunted. But because I know him as God and all providing and a king,
Mm.
that I can relate to for some reason more than father. But for some people,
Yeah.
they might see him as father, and that is their comfort.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, it sounds like too that you are able to definitely see him as a loving God,
Yes.
who loves you, cares for you. So that's just so key and important.
I will say though, I doubted that a lot. When you go
Sure.
through hard times, I had those moments that I thought, who does this? Who allows this?
Hmm.
This is not love. It didn't feel like love.
Yeah.
I think that was the key. And learning that sometimes the greatest love doesn't always feel like love, but it is. And
Hmm.
understanding that God gives us free will. God did not make my husband do these things.
Yes.
We're not robots. He didn't make a bunch of robot followers that would have, you know, no emotion and no free choice. He gave us the ability to choose. So unfortunately, yeah, I was hit by the shrapnel of my husband's choices, and it was
Hmm.
hard. And it did make me doubt God. But in the end, I think that that's what grows our faith. I think God wants us
Hmm.
to doubt him. I think he wants us to question and get curious, and not just to say, I'm a Christian because I was born a Christian, but I'm a Christian because I know Christ. Like,
Wow.
I've
That's
wrestled
great.
this with him. Yeah.
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 It
Wow.
doesn't have
That's
to be
good.
pretty. It gets ugly sometimes, and that's
Hmm.
okay.
And he can handle it.
He can, right?
Yes. Well, tell me a little bit about your daughters. I love that your oldest is Ellie. Sometimes I'm
Yes.
called Ellie by my family and friends.
Oh, I love that. So I had my girls very young. I met my
Okay.
husband in college. We married the summer after we graduated. I had Ellie the following February. So, yes, I was pregnant when I got married,
Wow.
which is not
Okay.
a secret to
Hmm.
like my kids. So, I had her at 23, and then I had Mia at 26,
Okay.
which was a super fun time to be a mom.
Mm.
Because while I was young, I really enjoyed the time that I got with them.
Hmm.
And I just think God is so good in that I got those years when they were little and I desired that. And now my oldest is 26. She has graduated from college and she has a great job, and she only lives about 40 minutes from us,
Oh, I love that.
which is beautiful in San Diego because it's an expensive place to live. And I wasn't sure,
Yes.
where they would end up. So I'm very thankful that she ended up here. And then my youngest, she has decided to continue on with her education. So she is at USC working on a double master's.
Wow.
And I would say for those who are listening who went through what I've been through, both of my
Hmm.
girls handled this differently. So my
Mm.
oldest daughter said, Mom, I see that this is something that happened to you, but I don't think it happened to me. Like, Dad's still Dad. He was a great dad. They had a great relationship with him. And
Hmm.
so she said, I want you to be happy. And so whether you stay with him or you get divorced, I don't care. Like, I just want you to be happy. And she kind of was able to separate herself from what happened.
Mm.
My younger daughter did not. She saw it happening to us, the
Mm.
family, our core unit. So therefore, it happened to her. And she kind of felt like, I can't believe Dad would do this to me. And she
Wow.
personalized it. And so
Hmm.
she is right now getting her double master's in social work and public health. And she has a huge heart for addiction, for people who are struggling, like homelessness,
Wow.
drug users. She has done a lot of things that make Mike and I a little scared. She's done needle
Hmm.
exchange programs, trying to get to know people on the street, trying to figure out how she can help. And so she has really taken this experience to heart. And I think in helping others, it's helping to heal her. And my older daughter feels everything on the inside and processes it there. And my younger daughter feels everything on the outside, and you're going to
Wow.
see it. And that's where she needs to process it with you on the outside.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's very interesting. I love having adult kids. I
Hmm.
love empty nesting.
Yes.
Yes, that has
That's
been,
great.
God is really good in that we are in a healthy place, my husband and I, while we are empty nesting. So, yeah, going back to God's timing, I didn't like it at the time, but now I can see the benefits of it and God's wisdom through it. And we needed this time alone, I think, to really level up in our healings. And so
Wow.
a lot of times as couples, you put a lot of things on the back burner because you deal with the children or you don't want to talk about it in front
So
of the
true.
kids. You don't want to fight in front of the kids. You're trying to create a
Hmm.
healthy atmosphere. We have had some dragged down fights and not having to worry about it affecting the kids was really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
So they're older now. They're both in great long-term relationships, and they are choosing to wait a while before they get married. And I couldn't be more thrilled with that. I don't think that's popular, or it wasn't when I was growing up in the Christian church.
Hmm.
They wanted you to get married young. And I'm really thankful that my kids know that that's not right for them and that they probably have some stuff to work through before they commit to marriage.
That's
So, yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Well, talking about their stories and how different they are just reminds me of how not only unique all of us are, and how God has to reach us so differently, and He does reach us differently, but just also just how everything we go through shapes us. And there's that verse in Romans 8:28 that God uses everything and can bring good out of it, but the next line is the good is conforming us to be like his son who went through a lot of suffering.
Yes,
So
he did.
I'm like, oh no, I'm glad you can make everything for my good, but it might also be a hard road.
Right.
But just so thankful that if we can make those choices to move on with him. And I think he helps us to do that. I think sometimes we can't do that moving on without him. I think he has to, spur us on toward that and help us in our souls to be able to move on. But if we can, then he truly can use that to shape us and like you're doing now too, to help others, in that situation. So thanks for being able to share. And I'm so impressed with how you have been able to be authentic, so real. So thank you. So I got to meet you and your husband for the first time. It was so fun. And you two are really cute together. That was fun to see. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, we are in a good place now. And he is very supportive of my endeavors. I think going through this, I found that reaching out and being creative and finding what I love has been part of my healing story as well. And he has been supportive every step of the way. So that has been really nice and fun to do together. He's getting to know me as I'm getting to know me, and then I'm getting to know different parts of him, as we are working through healing the parts of our lives that were broken or dented. Sometimes they're not
Hmm.
broken, sometimes they're a little dented, you
Yeah.
know?
I love your analogy of the shrapnel and also now being dented. Those are really
Yeah.
good. Okay, so tell me about your new endeavors. What have you been up to? I believe you have an interior design business. Is that right?
I do have an interior design business, and actually, it's thanks to Bob Goff
Oh my
because
goodness.
right around the time when everything was happening, we were 2 years in, we were still working through it. I came across Love Does. And that
Yes.
crazy man really showed me an example of what crazy love looks like, how Jesus
Wow.
loved. Do you know what I mean? To me,
Yes.
I think of him as he doesn't know this. He's my honorary grandfather. I don't know if he would like that because he's probably not old enough to be my
Yes.
grandfather.
Yes.
But his energy and the way he loves, and he has a fearlessness about it. He was doing these big dream frameworks all across the United States. And he was doing one in Waco, Texas. And I had fallen in love with Chip and Joanna Gaines and their show Fixer Upper.
Yes.
And I have
Oh, and I
always,
have to
yeah.
say a shout out to Baylor, where my son went to school.
Oh, yes, we love Baylor because it's in Waco. But when I saw that he was doing his dream framework in Waco with them, I thought, I
Oh
have
my
to do this.
goodness.
So when I
Wow.
went, part of his framework is like, what's your fastest pony? Just start writing down all your ideas. Now look at him and which one really jumps out to you? I had always loved interior design. Even as a child, I would always move the furniture around in my room or paint it. My parents were great. My stepdad and my mom, they let me put pink carpet in my room one time. And I just thought, you know what? This would be so amazing. And so he kind of got that dream going for me. And I was about a year and a half in when my grandfather, who I really love, had passed. And he was another big dreamer, followed his passions, so excited for life. And he left each of us a little bit of money. And I thought, how do I use this to honor him? So I went back to interior design school.
Wow.
And I did interior design school. And so now I have my own interior design business. I did end up getting a professional organization certificate as well.
Great.
And it has brought me so much joy. And then my husband being in business and law really helped me with my trademark on my logo, my website, getting a business license. He's helped me with my contracts. So yeah, I think that it's just like a new branch has grown off and it's blossoming. And it's really, really neat to see how God has brought joy into my life, but then has also used my husband to support and help like water that plant and the joy and cheer for it when it buds. And yeah.
Wow, that is
Yeah,
really cool. That's
it
great.
is
I'll be
cool.
sure to put a link to Bob Goff and
Oh
his
yeah.
books. I used to read stories from that to my sixth graders at camp, and they're just a hoot. There are these really funny stories from his life, but they always have these great messages at the end where he kind of turns it around to something that we can learn from it.
Yeah.
But boy, he is very fun. So, how fun that you got to go to that conference and that he just ignited that in you. Also, I'd love to put a link to your business website. That'll be
Yeah.
fun. And were you just recently in a magazine? I thought I saw you post about that.
Yes. So I have made some very nice, great friendships in the design world. And one of my fellow designers had sent my information over to, it was first in a magazine called Canvas Rebel. And then they did a short story, and then San Diego Voyager picked it up and wanted to do kind of more of a at length story.
That
I
is so
know. Isn't that cool?
exciting.
Yeah,
That's
it's fun.
great.
It
That's
is
very
fun. You know,
good.
it's really cool to be able to share and then give God the glory. And I don't know, there's just something that feels full circle and whole and fun when you kind of get to share. And then to have somebody take your pictures and kind of give you a full circle moment, like, oh, this is really nice.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic. And it seems like you see this as a gifting from God, that
Oh,
He's
yeah.
given you this love for design, this eye for it, even for beauty, for function, for maybe even organization. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yes. So, like, at the core of that, I think that when you walk into your home, that should be the place where you just say, like, ah, your shoulders go down, you look
Hmm.
around, you feel peace, you see your life. Um, and I think I've said it before, but like, it's my safe place. And I
Hmm.
think that when you walk into your home, not that everything has to be perfect, but when there has organization to it, when there's beauty in it, when your eye just naturally glances through the room, and then when it's done, you feel joy, peace. You feel the fruits of the Spirit. Do you know what I mean? You feel the love and the
Hmm.
kindness and
Yes.
oh, I love that feeling. So to go into somebody's house and whether or not it's a full remodel or just a little like interior styling, just to kind of show them the feelings that you can have in a home, in your home, that's what I want them to feel. I just want them to love where they live. And I want them to feel like tangibly feel the love in their house. So yeah.
That's great. I know one thing that I really appreciate about my mom, who's an interior designer, is that she doesn't just go in with her own ideas and say, hey, you're going to do this, this, and this. This would be great. But she really listens to the client and what that client wants and tries to figure out their own style as well. And you sound similar to that. Tell me more about that.
So I do have to say, that has gotten me a few times.
Which I would think it would any interior designer, because you've got to go in with these ideas, of course, of what you could do.
Right. So you have your idea of what you think might look the best in this space. And usually if you're working with somebody who they have an idea too, you can marry those and think, okay, let's pull from these, and yeah, let me get my own eye out of here because I can tell you love this. The challenge comes when you're working with someone who has no idea.
Yes.
Or
That
they
would be
think
hard.
they know, and you try to start getting ideas from them and they can't give you anything.
Wow.
Yes. So God has kept me very humble in this business. I've had 2 times where at different points in a job, I've done everything. I've prayed over it that we've just had to walk away. And that is
Sure.
an awful feeling as a
Yes.
designer.
Yeah.
But it's this humility, going back to it. Like, I feel like when you're recovering from something, you have to stay humble. You do. And I feel like even when you're on top of the world and you're not struggling with anything, you have to stay humble and moldable. And you have to be able to see where you lack and not be offended by it and just say, okay, this isn't my strength, Lord, but that's okay. Help me to be the best businesswoman I can be and the gracious one. And one of the clients, I just refunded everything because I just felt like the Lord was telling me this is not going well. This is not right. And no, you're not going to keep one penny of this. So,
Gotcha.
okay, like tail between the legs. Okay, God. And then I've had the
Boy.
opposite. I've had some that have ended and I have so much joy. I did
Yes.
my daughter's, she lives in a duplex, so we decorated her place together. I have never felt so much joy decorating in my life. It
Oh,
brought our relationship to a new level as we were
wow.
like business women together. And
Yes.
it turned out fantastic. In fact, a lot of the times when they ask for a picture, it's her living room that I will send over because it
Oh,
was so much fun. Yeah.
that's phenomenal. I
Yeah.
love that. And again, it's part of that being authentic, and
Yeah.
boy, humility is so huge. I think so often when we're not humble, we're really covering up some kind of insecurity because we don't want to admit that we may not be the best person for this, or that we haven't succeeded. And we just try to cover it up. And I'm speaking about myself here, make excuses, right? Or you can go the opposite way and just feel shame instead of, yeah, this is life. This is the way it goes. I'm not perfect.
Right.
And what can I learn from this? So that's great.
Yeah, it's funny how it works, you know?
We have
But
so much to learn.
we do. We do. And I don't know, I struggled with insecurity growing up. And then so to cover that, you layer on perfectionism,
Yes.
which you think is helping the insecurity, but really it just grows it underneath that lid of perfectionism. And
Mhm.
humility gets thrown out, and then you embarrass yourself pretty bad because you're trying so hard to keep it down that it usually will explode. So I feel like Jesus was so
Yes.
humble. He was perfect, yet he was so humble.
Yeah. I think it's easy to, like, when I see myself getting defensive or irritated, then I kind of can often point to, wait a minute, I think I'm not having humility here or being full of grace for the other person. What's
Yeah.
going on here? But the other thing I was thinking of is just, I love Colossians 3. It says, therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, and gentleness. But what I love about it is it says, first, remember. that you are holy and beloved. So we have to come out of that in order to have that humility and that compassion for others, because otherwise we're going to be guarded and trying to present our best self and not authentic and
Yes.
real. And it's really when we can be authentic and real that Jesus can shine through us, and that can really show the light of Christ, because people can see, wait a minute, this is real. It's not about appearing a certain way. Being a Christian isn't about being this perfect person or holier than thou person or hypocritical person. It's about really understanding your need for Jesus and his incredible compassion and grace. So that's one thing that I always hope this show gets across, is that we aren't perfect and that Jesus loves us. There's this pastor, Josh White, in Portland at a church called Door of Hope, and he says all the time that when we're at our worst, Jesus is crazy about us. So that's his line that I love to repeat to myself.
Oh, that's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. I think that's when we as Christians or the Christian church show the least amount of Christ, is when we're trying to be
Yes.
perfect and we're not real and we're not humble, and we don't say, hey, you know what, I mess up all the time. But we try to put this facade out that, oh, because I've accepted Christ, I am now perfect. Yeah. And until
So
you
true.
get your stuff together, you can't be right with God. So it's so backwards. And I don't think, a lot of times we don't intend it to be backwards. But man, it's a
Yes,
turn off to Christ when
it
you're not
is.
humble. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's definitely not of Jesus himself. And there's so
Right.
many verses where Paul is talking about, look, guys, you've got to be unified. You've got to love one another, because they weren't. And sometimes I even look at those verses and say, oh, yuck, I don't really want to have that unity. I don't want to admit that I don't want to love everybody. But on the flip side is that, boy, God created each one of us, loves each one of us. So how fun that we get to be a family and love each other through all the difficulties and
Yeah.
crazy personality traits that we have. So
Right.
good. Wow. Well, thank you so much, Nancy. I just love talking with you, and thanks so much for being on the show today.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me and letting me share my story.
Thanks, everyone, for joining us. This is Ellen Bennett with the Extraordinary Lives podcast. If you've enjoyed the show, please consider telling a friend or giving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts so more folks can find us. Thanks.